Hello, welcome to Clare's Food Haven and another Mum's Mondays. It's absolutely freezing outside today. It's -5 here in southwest Scotland. So today we're going to make a warming pie. We're going to make a chicken, ham and mushroom pie with a hot water crust pastry, which is quite an unusual pastry to make. It's actually easier than it sounds. And we're going to base this recipe on John Kirkwood's chicken and ham and mushroom pie. John Kirkwood is a retired chef from the northeast of England. So I hope we'll be able to do it justice today. So first of all, running through the ingredients for the hot water crust pastry, we've got 400 grams of plain flour. We've got a teaspoon of salt that's going to go in it. We've got 170 mils of water. We've got 90 grams of butter, which has been diced, and 100 grams of lard, which has also been diced. If you don't have lard, which is a pork product, you could use another kind of vegetable fat. So those are the ingredients for the hot water crust pastry. And now I'll just run through the rest of the ingredients, which are for the filling for the pie. We've got 320 grams of cooked chicken left over from a chicken dinner that we had the other night. You can actually make this pie with uncooked chicken as well, which is what's used in the recipe that we're following. But because we've got cooked chicken, we want to use it up. Then we've got 130 grams of cooked ham, which again is left over from our Christmas cooked ham. We've got 8 button mushrooms. We've got a little pot of chicken stock, which will make up to 200 mils. We probably only need one. We may possibly need 2 of those. We'll see how we get on. We've got another ounce of plain flour here. And we'll need 2 cloves of garlic, which I've already crushed. Another 30 grams of butter, and a tablespoon of cider vinegar or white wine vinegar. Ours is cider vinegar. And then for the seasonings, we'll need some black pepper, some white pepper, about half a teaspoon of each, and some dried thyme, half a teaspoon of dried thyme. The recipe we're looking at called for a small bunch of chopped parsley, but we can't get any parsley at this time of year around here. And then a large egg with some milk in it for glazing the pastry at the end. Oh, I think I forgot to say that we also need some cream. We've got 120 mils of double cream. I think that's all the ingredients. So that's the ingredients for the filling. So first of all, we're going to make the hot water crust pastry over at the stove. And then we're going to come back over here and knead it into a dough. And then it will need to go into the fridge for an hour or 2. But whilst it's cooling in the fridge, we can make the filling for the pie. So first of all, the water's going into the pan to warm up. And now I'm going to add the teaspoonful of salt into the flour and mix them up. I'm mixing them up with a spurtle, which is a really good stirrer, which is usually used for stirring porridge. But it's fantastic for other things as well. So that's the salt mixed into the flour, and now I'm going to put the lard and the butter into the hot water. And we'll wait for them to melt. Now that the fat's melted, I'm going to pour it into the flour and salt mixture. Mixing it together with the spurtle. It feels very doughy, not at all like a pastry, of course. I'm just going to test how warm it is to the touch. It's okay to handle. And now you'll notice that that was a non-floured surface. Not what you expect. So you just bring it together, handling it as little as possible. It's very soft. And cut it in half. And wrap the two halves in cling film. And put it in the fridge for an hour or two to firm up. So now to prepare the rest of the ingredients for the filling whilst the pastry is cooling in the fridge. First of all, I'm going to chop up the chicken into cubes. I'll just wash my hands. The size that you want to find them in the pie. Not too big. And that's the chicken, diced. And now the ham. It's already cubed. I'm just making the cubes a bit smaller. That's the ham ready. And now the mushrooms. I'm going to change boards and wash my hands. And now for the mushrooms. I'm going to cut the stems off because they're a bit woody. Now slicing the mushrooms. That's the mushrooms prepared. So that's all the ingredients for the filling prepared. So now it's time to go over to the stove and make the filling whilst the pastry is cooling in the fridge. So we've come over to the cooker to make the filling for the chicken, ham and mushroom pie. First of all, the 30 grams of butter is going in the pan to melt. Now the butter's melted, I'm going to add the garlic. And just soften it a bit. I don't want it to burn. And now I'm going to add the mushrooms. It's a funny thing with mushrooms, they absorb all the fat when you're cooking them, but then as they cook, they start to release the fat again. So don't be tempted to keep adding more butter when you're cooking mushrooms. Now I'm going to add the flour. That's really dried it up. And the vinegar goes in next. And the chicken stock. Now I'm going to season it with the black pepper, half a teaspoon, white pepper, half a teaspoon, quite a lot of pepper, and the dried thyme, half a teaspoon. Oops. Now I'm going to taste it to see if it needs the half teaspoon of salt that's been recommended in the recipe. I don't think it needs any salt. But I'm going to ask Alan to check that. I think there's been enough salt in the stock. Now I'm going to add the cream. It was very highly seasoned at that point. That was a lot of pepper. Alan's had to go for a glass of water. Now I'm going to add the cooked chicken. Whoops. And the ham. Mixing it up with the spurtle. And wait for it to come up to a boil. as it comes up to the boil, it should be thickening. I'm just going to put the lid on it for a minute or two. That'll bring it up quicker. That's the filling up to a boil. So it's time to turn it off and leave it to cool. So that's the pie filling ready to use once it's cooled and set. You can't use it hot because it would spoil the pastry. And when it cools and sets, hopefully it should set firmer. So you can actually do this, leave it to set, put it in the fridge the day before, and then make up your pies the next day, if that suits you better. Welcome back. The hot watercress pastry has been in the fridge for overnight. We didn't get round to making these pies yesterday, and so then the pastry was too hard. So then we've taken it out of the fridge, and it's been resting at room temperature for over an hour. So hopefully it'll be the right temperature now to work with. So I'm going to flour, take the lid off first, flour the surface. Taking the cling film off. Still a bit hard. I'll have a go at rolling it and see if it'll be rollable. Yep, it is rollable. So now we're looking to roll out this first half of the pastry thinly enough so that it can fit 6 of these tins, which are 10 centimetres by 2.5 centimetres, which is roughly 4 inches by 1 inch. And the idea is for the base, you roll it and cut it about 1 inch bigger than that on each side. So this dish will provide that sort of overlap for the base. And then for the top of the pie, we would just use the tin itself, which is the right size for the top of the pie. So now I'm going to try and roll this pastry out. So I've rolled this pastry out to about 3 mil of thickness, and I'm going to see how many pies we can get out of this. So I think I'll only get 2 of these bases from this piece of pastry. I'll cut that out to start with. And I'm just going to try this one in one of the pie tins, because if it's far too big, then I'll go for something smaller. I've already greased these pie tins with lard, And John Kirkwood had a top tip, which was get a bit of leftover pastry and use that to push the pastry into the pie tin. And I must say that's gentler than using my fingers, so that's a good top tip. That's a good top tip. And now I'm going to trim off the excess because that dish was actually quite a lot too big. And when I look at it like that, the pastry looks quite a lot too thick. I'm just trimming that off anyway. And we'll go for a smaller dish to cut it out with for the next one. So that's one. Oops. So now I'm going to try this slightly smaller plate, slightly bigger than the pie dish. See how that looks next. It's trial and error, as you can see. So, number 2. Again with a bit of leftover pastry, pushing it in to the edges. That's a better fit. I haven't had to cut anything off there. So I'm going to go for that, for the fit. I'm going to roll out the middle, because now that I started to cut, I can see it's quite a lot thicker in the middle. That's better. Right, try another one. Now I'm going to re-roll what we've got left over here for, hopefully we'll be able to get the other 2 bases out of it. I'd rather do the bases if I can, because they won't be so visible. Right, I think I'll do a bottom and a top here. Because the top will be a bit smaller. And I need to remember to do another bottom out of the other half of the pastry. And a top. Oh yeah, perfect fit. Oops. I'll put that top to one side as well. Great. So now I'll start the other half of the pastry. There we are. That's a good start. So using the pie tin for the tops and plate for the one more bottom that I need, I'll do that one first. And 6. Right, so now it's time to fill the cases with the filling that we made yesterday. I've had a bit of a tidy up and I've got the 6 pie bases ready for us to fill them. And this is the filling that we made yesterday. As you can see, it's quite a lot firmer than it was when it was cooking. So that's what we wanted, which is good. And the recipe advises that you don't overfill beyond the top of the case. So let's see how we get on with that. We want it quite stiff. Banging them down to see if I can get it to settle. So now it's time to egg wash the sides of the pies. And also egg wash the outside of the tops to help it stick to the bottom. Turn it over, pop it on, and carry on. And the next one. Turn it over. There we are. Now, so that's the 6 pies, all with their lids on. And now I'm going to, instead of crimping them with my fingers, I'm going to push the edges together with a fork. That's the 6 pies, ready for egg washing the top. Now I'm going to put 3 of the pies onto one of these pizza trays with holes in the bottom. That's it. And the next three. And now I'm going to cut some little slits into the top of the pie to let the steam out. So the pies are now ready to go in the oven. We're cooking them in the gas oven today, gas mark 3. That would be 170, or if you have a fan oven, that would be 150. And they'll stay in the oven towards the bottom of the oven to encourage the bases to cook for 40 minutes. The chicken, ham and mushroom pies have had 40 minutes in the oven at gas mark 3. That would be 170 degrees or 150 fan. So they look ready now, so I'm going to take them out. The pies need to stand for 5 minutes. They'll be too soft to take out of their tins yet. So we'll leave them for 5 minutes and then we'll take them out of the tins. They don't look overbaked, but they freeze really well. And when we warm them up after freezing, they'll have another little bake. So it doesn't do to have them too well baked at this stage. But hopefully they're well enough baked and hopefully the bottoms will be nicely cooked. We'll have a look when we take them out. So the pies have had 5 minutes to cool down and I'm going to have a look at them now. Well, that seems to be loose. That's good. Ah, that's disappointing. We've got a soggy bottom. Right. Let's have a look at the rest. At least it's loose. That's slightly better cooked, but still not as well cooked as I would like to see. So that's a bit disappointing. I'm going to put these back in the oven for another 5 minutes or so towards the bottom of the oven, and hopefully we can sort out that soggy bottom problem. So the last 10-15 minutes have been a little bit fraught. As you know, the pies had a soggy bottom when we took them out. So I put them back in again, not in the pie dishes, just straight onto the pizza tray, and gave them another 5 minutes, and then took them out and rested them for another 5 minutes to firm up, and they were still a bit soggy on the bottom. So we turned them upside down because the holes in the top of the crust had more or less sealed up. It didn't seem too risky to do that. So now I'm going to take them out again. And they look a bit better. But again, they're going to have to be left to rest for 5 minutes to firm up again. And I'm hoping that when I turn them back over again, the tops won't have gone soggy. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. So the pies have had 5 minutes since they've come out of the oven, just to firm up a bit, since I had them in upside down. And I'm hoping now that they'll be okay. So moment of truth, I'm going to turn one over carefully. There we are. suffered slightly from being upside down in the oven, but not too bad. So that's the chicken pies. And you remember we had a little bit of leftover pastry and leftover filling. So I'll just show you what we did with those. We did a little pasty. It wouldn't win any competitions, but I'm sure it'll taste good. And it's quite well cooked on the bottom as well. I'll just turn it over. So the pasty didn't suffer from a soggy bottom. And I'll just cut into one of the pies and we can see what it's like inside. That's the chicken, ham and mushroom pie. And I'm just going to give it a taste. That is a very good pie. Thanks for watching. And if you like the video, please subscribe. Thank you.